I'm Genevieve. Thank you for joining me. This is my monthly patron chat where anybody who's €3 and up, patrons, can come and hang out and ask whatever you want. And yeah, I talk about anything from, beginner, early non-monogamy to, more complex theory. There's a lot of range of what we can cover. So I welcome anyone at any, in any space, any headspace, any kind of relationship, come and ask me anything. Okay, so I have some questions submitted here that I can do first. Mhm. Okay, first question. I feel like a lot of poly advice is a fancy version of just talk about it. Fair. Which is all well and good, but I feel like I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm just upset. I don't know what I want. I just want to feel better. What do you talk about when you don't even know where to start? Okay. That is totally fair. I think a lot of us are overwhelmed in the beginning and kind of confused about even like what do I ask for? What even is this experience that I'm going through, right? There can be a lot of newness to it that we don't yet have words for. And it sounds like this person is struggling to even be able to name the emotions, which I know is not uncommon. So, disclaimer that this is what I can speak to from my own experience because I went through something similar when I was younger. Um, yeah, I'd be happy to walk through how I started to get from point A to point Z, you know? Um, but, do with it what you will. I'm not a therapeutic mental health professional. So if there is something bigger going on, that might be better, explored elsewhere. But from a practical standpoint, yeah, I didn't even know. I was like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know, just like sick, just bad, and like this person is saying, I'm feeling upset. I just want to feel better. That is a place to start. Feeling upset is a place to start. What does upset feel like? Heart racing, skin hot, you know, can't can't say anything. What does upset feel like or look like? That can be a place to get information, so you already do know some stuff about yourself. Um, and so starting with those small things, sometimes we can name the basics of like, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm mad, that is also a place to start because there can be 1,000, more specific explanations to that core feeling. I think I think there's like a feelings sheet, like a list of feelings that's like 34,000 different feelings. Don't overwhelm yourself, but I at one point did have a sheet that had 15 or 25 different words to explain more specifically what kind of sad, what kind of mad. And that can maybe be more accessible if it's feeling overwhelmed. But yeah, so naming those small things, and even if you do not struggle with this in other areas of life and something so vulnerable as non-monogamy, sometimes people start to struggle with it and they're like, I feel like I'm five again. I don't have words, right? Totally fair, totally fine. It can be a very activating thing. It is a very vulnerable thing. And for a lot of us, it's a very radical change. And so it's not uncommon to feel like, you don't have words even though you do in other areas of life. So that said, starting small and then naming what's connected to that. So you talked to me like that. I feel sad, right? It doesn't mean that that person caused the feeling. I'm just connecting the dots. When this happened, I started feeling this way. That's good information. And if there's any story in your head that can also reveal more, like I felt this way and my brain was telling me I'm going to be abandoned, you're going to leave me, like whatever the words are, the narrative, that's also good to know. We can elaborate on feeling bad by the narrative of I'm going to be abandoned, just as an example. So that is a basis. The core of this question being, what do we talk about? Just talk about it. What do we talk about? We're describing what's happening to us. We're finding out in real time I don't know. I don't know what I am, what I will be, and sharing that, and then listening to other people describe what they are going through, and then together we s- try stuff to have a better time. That's like essentially the core of negotiating different bounds in non-monogamy is I want to feel safe. What might that look like? What does safety do? So boiling it down to something bare bones simplistic like that, I think has a lot of value. Like that can feel much more approachable and accessible. And so I encourage people at, any degree of no matter if you've done therapy for 15 years, like this it can be a tool in the toolbox. So yeah, noticing the narrative that comes about. And then the second half of this question being like, I don't know what to ask for, I just want to feel better. That's also incredibly common. Because it's can feel like uncharted territory. It is uncharted territory when you are changing a relationship, even if you're polyamorous and evolving like into a different shape of polyamory or welcoming people or letting go of people. Like it can feel, I don't know what I need in this new situation. So starting with, well, I want to feel safe, right? What do I want to happen, to have happen, right? I want to feel loved and good about myself. That's great. So, what things are connected to that? I feel safe when you say you'll show up and then you do, right? Like that makes me feel like I can rest. You know? So noticing that, and it doesn't have to be in this relationship, anywhere in life, I feel relaxed when I am in nature. That's good information too, because we can then know it's not just the relationship. If you've been out in a concrete city all day in a really stressful job and then come home, maybe your stress level's already up here and it's going to be harder to navigate whatever you're doing in your relationship, right? So, whatever we feel safe or happy or, whatever you're trying to feel, can we connect the dots of like what are the conditions that I feel that way and look out from just the relationship, just how we treat each other to like holistically all of the factors at play can be helpful. And so then that tells us what we do and don't have control over. Well, I can't control if you go to your job, if that's stressful. I can control when I talk to you about stuff. Maybe I will ask you about your day, help you decompress, like try to relieve some stress for you before we get into a possibly stressful talk. So the what we ask for kind of stems out of what we're trying to achieve. And then we try something and maybe it does it, maybe it won't, like there is a fair amount of you learn on the field what actually works. We have our best idea and then I don't know, let's roll the dice. Let's see how it goes. I think I want to know you had sex with this person after, like right after. But apparently, if you tell me right after, I'm still processing that you were on a date. And now knowing that, I don't want that. Like every person will discover in real time the small little details of what they want and what they're going to ask for. But we start with big picture, I want to feel safe and try to get more specific from there. Big picture, I feel sad. Why? What kind of sad? And try to get more specific from there. So I hope that that's helpful. I think it's a very common thing and very human. So, but I think there's a lot of value in being able to name emotions being able to get it out of us and then having another person say like, "I see you. I hear that," you know? Like saying the thing and then being seen and accepted. Okay. Next question. One of my partners, our arguments always turn into debating who's right about what happened. They will point out all the details that I'm wrong about in my version. So then I want to do that to them. Yeah. Then we get stuck and can't seem to agree to disagree. Do you have any thoughts on what we could do differently? Yeah, I mean, it can be easy to get hung up on the details of what like you're describing it wrong, you know? You're painting me in an unfair light in your characterization of that. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't what I was doing, you know? It can be easy to get stuck on that when we're upset with someone. And I think that can be explored. Like I don't think it's all or nothing. It really depends what you're talking about, but getting to sort of similar to the previous question, getting to what is the feeling, you know, of like not missing the forest for the trees, right? Getting fixated on the tiny trees. Whoa, what is the forest? You know, what I want to have this go differently next time. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling scared. You know, what is the core feeling that I'm trying to express or the core need that I feel isn't being met? And can I say that and be listened to? Can the other person say theirs and be listened to? I had an argument with a partner the other day where we were like kind of making adjustments to the schedule. And I was trying to be more flexible and accommodating because I can be very type A and very rigid sometimes of like, no, I need consistency. You know, this is how it's got to go. You said this is how it would go. And like, I've gotten a lot better over the years, but sometimes, especially during periods of change, and I'm going through a big period of change and growth, and it's like creative projects and being visible online and way more platforms and stuff. And like, so it's been a vulnerable time. And then I can easily fall back into my old patterns of like, but the schedule can't change too, right? Like, no. And so I was saying like, you did it this way or you said that. And the other person was like, no, I didn't. Like, that's not fair. And we came to, I want some stability, right? I want to not be surprised. I want to know what's going to happen big picture, right? Because that can look a lot of ways. And that's essentially what I'm trying to achieve. Can you hear me that I'm stressed and life is like throwing a lot of change at me and I'm not wanting change? Like, can you hear that? And then the other person can say their piece. And they were basically saying, like, I'm neurodivergent, like I'm ADHD, like there's not really a whole lot that like sometimes it's even literally inaccessible for me to show up exactly in the way that we've agreed or and my conception of time is different than yours, like my brain literally works different than yours, and so this becomes a conversation about accommodation and disability and stuff too. And that was really helpful for me to like pause and take in and really see like, okay, regardless of our nitpicking of the specifics of this exact, event, zooming out, what are the needs? What are we trying to say at the end of the day? What are we trying to have be validated? And can we validate that in each other? And then often I'll find that the little details kind of fall away. It's like, how much does that matter? Because we're actually getting to the root of the thing. And yeah, so we were both feeling better because we got to say it and the other person listened and the other person was saying like, I could see why you would feel that way, or, oh, that makes sense that you want that. And then we're both feeling like, okay, right, we aren't we aren't like at each other, we aren't against each other. You getting your need met isn't versus me getting my need met, right? Like no one has to win. Can we say what we need and then brainstorm together? And so we brainstormed together an idea of a kind of flexible schedule of like, okay, sometime this weekend a thing will happen. It will be between Friday and Sunday, and I agree to be flexible and you agree to like have the intention of something generally this weekend. right? More accommodation and fluidity, but then also not completely open ended. So I feel unmoored, was our resolution in that particular sense. And so that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, is like validating feelings and getting to the real meat of things. And then maybe solutions come later, right? Like sometimes that's not the same conversation. Like sometimes you're just so like dealing with the feelings and you just want to figure out the logistics later, for higher stakes things. And that's fair too, because the logistics conversation can be like emotional too, or set off new emotions. And if you're exhausted, it's not the right time, and so forth. So, read the room, and take a sense of like where you're at. But hopefully, yeah, hopefully that kind of thing can be helpful. Okay, next question. Thanks for your recent Patreon video about tools for hard conversations. An issue I run into with my girlfriend is that even when we take time out and come back to a conversation, we get really activated again. It's like the timeout wears off. Yeah. And they ask, is there a way around that? So this is where I feel like it's a bit above my pay grade potentially, right? Because I'm not a therapist or mental health professional. I'm not trained in trauma recovery. And so this person's describing getting activated and like not being able to really regulate that, in which case I would defer to people who know better than me about that kind of stuff, because I wouldn't want to give a suggestion, even if it worked for me, even if my therapist suggested it for me. I don't want to give a tip that could like do the opposite of what it's trying to do, that could like hurt the person who's trying it. So but I think information gathering is helpful, so if possible, if accessible, some form of mediation, right? Like if keep not going anywhere, can somebody help shine light on a third direction the conversation could go, right? That is usually what I do next, like if we keep hitting a wall. Um and then, yeah, getting mental health support around the activation and what that is and what sets it off presently. And depending on how big it is there stuff from the past that's like amplifying it? It could be both. It could be that you didn't like how your partner's talking to you and it reminds you of how your dad used to talk to you when you were 5. You know what I mean? Like it's like it could be both. And I think when I say information gathering, just noticing the patterns is helpful to start to work on, like, with other people, to start to work on understanding why it's happening. I think understanding why it's happening like that, why the pattern is patterning, can help streamline what we do about it, what we try to do about it, or if something is hurting and needs to be healed, like, that can shine light on it. And maybe once that is addressed, hey, it turns out I'm not as activated by you talking to me like that, because I'm working on this stuff with my dad, you know? So, yeah, what are the pain points and what are the trigger points? And, you know, being able to just name that, um, can help figure out why. Yeah, because sometimes it is too much for us to navigate on our own, and there's no shame in that. That's totally fair. Like sometimes without help, we aren't getting anywhere, and that's why we need people. It's okay to need people. Okay, next question. I'm going through a breakup from a long-term monogamous relationship of 18 years. Now I'm forging into the wilderness without the person that I'd always considered my anchor partner. I'm navigating this new space alone is very challenging. Do you have any advice? Wow, 18 years. My longest relationship is currently 10 years, and I'm trying to imagine. Yeah, you really get into a flow, like, you really life starts to just passively include this person. Like, they're just kind of always there, that's a given. So if I'm imagining doubling that to almost 20 years of this person just always being there, I can't like of course it would feel a little disorienting, like, because it sounds like you're adjusting to a new reality and like even just making plans could be like, oh yeah, oh right, they won't be there for that. You know what I mean? It's like snapping into this new framework that doesn't include this person. And yeah, I mean, if you are polyamorous, you said the relationship is long-term monogamous. It sounds like you are going towards a shape of relationship that would better fit you. But processing change, that we want to give that space. We want to give that time and care. Like I was saying, I'm going through a lot of change. And like if I just go through it really fast and I get really task oriented and I'm like, this, I can do this next and that next, like it can build up. And then I just have this feeling of something is not right. Sometimes I feel like it's just like trying to get out and all of the acting and doing things is can sometimes get in the way of processing it, if that makes sense. So if there is space for whatever you're feeling, grief or, self discovery, it doesn't have to be all like mourning or stress or fear. Like there could also be this curiosity of like, I wonder who I am in this situation. Like, I wonder, oh wow, I can just do whatever I want and go wherever I want, for vacation. Like I don't have to ask this person if they would have a good time there and like accommodate them. Like, cool, like there could be this fun and this play as well in discovering this new reality. And so just like giving space for that to, run its course and be nonlinear and like have good days and then have intense days. But when it comes to, entering the polyamorous space solo, I'm not sure if you mean solo polyamory. I do have videos on solo polyamory, which is not wanting to have an interdependent life with a partner, which would make sense if that's what you want coming out of an almost 20-year marriage, right? Of like wanting a little bit more, let's not mix our lives too much at the moment. But yeah, either way, I think getting clarity on what you want out of a polyamorous relationship or the kinds of things you're open to, right? I think that can be a beautiful thing about polyamorous dating is we're not looking for one particular checklist. We are getting to know people and seeing what does this relationship do? Like maybe I only want to do a couple things with you. Like we only overlap in like two hobbies. So that's all we do together and it's great. So there's a lot more fluidity, not unlike the fluidity that monogamous people give to friendships. We can give that to every kind of relationship if that's what we're after. Some people are like, I want a nesting partner, and that is my intent for dating, which is fine too. But just what are you seeking and or what are you open to having happen? That can be nice to get clarity on. Um, and then from there, what would the traits be of people that you'd want to do that with? You know? What would their what would their vibe be? What would their strengths be? What would be some signs that they're good at it? You know? So that can also be good to have personal clarity on. Again, not to have rigidity. You're going to discover a lot along the way, but I think it's it's really good to continue asking, I wonder what I like. I wonder what I want. I wonder, who I feel okay with in what context. And that'll probably be an ongoing discovery. Mhm. Next question. Do you date people who have primary partners? If yes, how do you work it out so you're not feeling like you're just getting the scraps? Ooh, ooh, I know that feeling, getting the scraps. Okay. Primary partners. The answer is no, but I have like follow-up questions. So, what is a primary partner to like what is that? How does that person define it? you know? So if somebody is like, oh, well, my primary partner means that they're always going to be the one who does stuff with me. They're always going to be the one I build a life with, like to the exclusion of other people. If they're like in a rigid, social hierarchy, and that's why they call that person the primary, that I don't want to be very close with. Like I'm pretty anti-hierarchy in my life. I'm trying to confront it wherever possible. And so that's going to be a bad time for me. But also, dating, what is dating? Not to be obtuse, right? But it's just like to explore. And I have a video on Patreon is like, can relationship anarchy ever coexist with hierarchy? And that kind of goes into it a bit more. But being with a person who's like somebody that I might hook up with once in a while, and they are in a hierarchy. I don't know, maybe I take that risk if they're fun to hook up with, you know? But I might have the limitations of like I would feel very guarded in other areas of my life because I don't relate to how you're structuring and you're like and what your like value system is around that. So yeah, but most of the time I don't pursue much intimacy. I definitely don't pursue like prolonged intimacy with anybody that, approaches in a hierarchical way. However, I do have plenty of friends. I have friends that are monogamous, like monogamous couples that I love hanging out with, and they are definitely in a hierarchy. They are like super not monogamous. Like so there are plenty of contexts that I hang out with people that I enjoy time and space with those people and so it just depends, yeah, what are you trying to do? It could impact what kind of friends I have though. Like I'm not going to go to those friends for emotional support about relationships because they'll probably give me bad advice, or advice that doesn't suit me. But this question asking like how do you work it out so you feel like you're not getting the scraps? It's tough because like I said, I don't pursue intimacy with that kind of structure. As well, I want to flag like sometimes people have a primary, but they don't call it that. They have this person that is like de facto the one, and everybody else gets the scraps like you're describing, but they call it non-hierarchy, right? So it's not just in the label, it's also in the practice. What does it look like? We pay attention to that. And if you feel like you are only getting a small amount of time with a person, can that also be like inquired about? Like, do you not want to spend time with me? Because sometimes it's not the other person. It's not that the other partner has asked for it or that the other partner matters more. It's that, like, sometimes the person we're seeing just doesn't want to see us that often. That could be part of it. And even if they have a hierarchy, maybe that's not the hierarchy at work. That's just like a person negotiating what kind of thing they want to do with you. So that can be helpful to get clarity on and see what you're up against, if they even want it. Like, then if they don't, then why fight for that, because you want to be with someone who wants the same stuff as you. But yeah, if it turns out that they're like, oh, I want to, but my wife I side eye that because I'm like, well, you're still a grown adult, so maybe take responsibility, like maybe own it. I appreciate when people own their own choices. Um, but yeah, that I think inherently will have you not getting as much. And so if you're wanting something more significant from a person who's unwilling or unable to give it, that could be setting yourself up for disappointment. So in terms of feeling like I'm not getting the scraps, I will step back. I will step back and I will just not try to not get that from them or try to not want that from them. Okay. Next question. I have big feelings for someone and she is married and monogamous. I'm married too, but I'm poly. Is there a way I can tell her about how I feel or do I just not even go there? Okay. Hmm. That's really tough, right? That's kind of a judgment call on risk and reward in your particular situation. In general, like, I don't know, what are you trying to do with that? Because if you're saying like, hey, I've noticed I've had these feelings. It would feel weird to not say anything. And please know that I'm not trying to break you up. I'm not trying to give you a polyamory sales pitch. Like, please know that I just want you to know this and to have said it, that's one thing. If it is more of an approach like that, you're hoping they'll open their marriage or something, like which would make sense to want if you have really strong emotional feelings for this person. It would make sense to want them to wake up and realize they want polyamory too, or maybe they've even said it in passing that that sounds like a nice thing. But we can't make somebody want to reshape their relationship. We can't make somebody want to do that work. And yeah, so I think that's probably how I would go about it is if I wanna share the feelings, like, if that feels, like, not doable to keep hidden, then I wanna make clear what my motives are and just let them do with it what they will, you know? It's always a risk, it's always a gamble because a person could feel awkward and wanna spend less time with you. They could feel like even if they were open to polyamory, they could feel like, "Well, I don't feel that way about you," and now it's uncomfortable because there was a rejection. Like, they could say, "I feel that way about you too, and I'm not willing to change right now," and take no for an answer with that, Even if there's, like, crumbs of hope. That's what I can say about that is, like, take no for an answer or take maybe as a no in that case, because often it is a no. And I've seen a lot of people just, like, hang out, waiting for the day that they're gonna finally do what they said they wanna do, and that can be tiring and kind of demoralizing. So yeah, what are you trying to achieve? What is telling her do? And what are the benefits of not telling her? Okay, next question. It's really hard as a couple sincerely looking to enter a committed relationship with a third to find anyone on dating apps. I tried but gave up because the only matches wanted to date just me. Is there any hope for us ever getting a triad? Okay. So dating as a couple is treacherous, can be treacherous, right? It sounds like it's not just for hookups that you're wanting a triad. Please do know that a triad is one of the most complex forms of relationships in polyamory. It is very labor intensive to navigate in a way that feels good for everybody. A lot of talks, a lot of talks, a lot of the couple looking at their own coupleship, right? And how to make it more accommodating to a new person. A lot of, dealing with the fact that your partner and this other person have their own duo apart from you, even in a triad. Jealousy happens in triads all the time, right? Because, like, there are 4 relationships in a triad, and you will have your own relationship with this person that your spouse might have to or your partner might have to deal with, right? So that you're not all 3 all together all the time. So please understand or like just try to envision try to envision the reality of being in another place while your partner sleeps with this person, right? Or wanting to go on a vacation with this person and your partner can't come but you still want to go, right? There is this idea sometimes that couples will have that, maybe if we date together then our coupleship will stay intact. And it's really a question of like, do you feel like you will always the 2 of you be a single unit? Because if yes, then I've kind of always seen those triads crash and burn because that dissonance of you're not one person. You are 2 separate people. And so you are dating separately, even in a triad you know and if not, if it is it's always the 2 of us with you, that can be very alienating for the third person. So even if they like you and the reason it's called a unicorn is because like the chances of a person falling in love with both people in a couple is much more narrow because it's already narrow to find someone that falls in love with one person, let alone both, at the same time. It does happen, but it usually happens a bit more organically when people are dating separately. And then, metamors are hanging around and, then they start to catch feelings for another person. And then a triad can organically form. That's usually how I've seen a lot of triads form. Starts from dating separately and then you let it do what it's going to do. But it can't be forced, it can't be manufactured, I'm sorry to say. And if there's discomfort dating separately, there's going to be discomfort in the triad. Like there's no avoiding that. And so I usually encourage dating separately, not just because you want to find out who are you in non-monogamy and, who are you independent of this dyad, but also because if that's going to be a problem, it is much simpler in one-to-one dynamics with people who aren't dating the other person, right? 'Cause then you're, like, jealous of the person you're also dating, and it's complex. So, I understand people wanting a triad because it gets romanticized. It's pretty much the only representation in most polyamorous media is triads. Whenever a polyamory is discussed in the news, they always get a stock image of 2 women and 1 dude, like, all holding hands. There's always this fixation on triads, and so I would love to see more representation of different shapes of polycules because I think then maybe fewer people would be doing this unicorn hunting thing because they would, like, see more examples of what's possible. Sometimes it's hard to imagine without, like, seeing an example. So I empathize with that, like, more limited focus, but asking, "Why are we only dating together?" Asking, "How are we as a duo doing?" Because like, if the 2 of you ain't doing great, the 3 of you is gonna be worse, right? You just like this person has their own emotions and needs and fears and wants, might fall in love with different people at different times, might feel much more sexually attracted to one person and not to another. Like they are different relationships. And so if there's fear of the dyad not being prepared to date separately, then I would unfortunately say that you're probably not prepared to date in a triad, which is okay. It's just good to know and good to explore before trying it. Because yeah, you don't want to have to find that out the hard way. You could do that work preemptively and ask like, why aren't we ready to date separately? Why what is that? And approach with curiosity and see what you find. So I don't know. Every time I give that kind of answer, people are disappointed, but I'm not against like couples being visible for a unicorn to approach them. There's plenty of singles that do like hooking up with couples and even like going on dates and outings with couples. It's just like if you're aiming for a triad, like the gravity of that, the weight of that. I'm doing this 12 years and I would be intimidated to be in a triad. I would be like, "Ooh, do I have the hours in the day to do that kind of emotional labor to like hammer out the details of that, right? For what it's worth." So, yeah, I think the fantasy of a triad is rarely the reality beyond like 3 months. I think people get like a honeymoon period with it, and then everything I just described comes crashing down. So, um, not to rain on your parade, maybe you will have a triad at some point, but I imagine that would be the final step in a lot of significant, work and self-exploration. Okay, next question. It's actually the last question that was submitted. So if anyone has any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in. Otherwise, we might end this live a little bit early. Okay, next question. My supposedly poly-friendly therapist, she told me, well, if you have this much insecurity, this is clearly not for you. It's not the first time I've been told that I have to be totally healed to be non-monogamous. I don't have a question, I guess, but I'm just wondering your opinion. I'm sorry that happened to you. Like poly-friendly does not mean poly-informed, unfortunately, right? And a lot of therapeutic and medical professionals are still catching up to like maybe they are trying to, not see the stigmas, and be encouraging of it like hypothetically. But if they're not informed about the realities of the ups and downs of non-monogamy, then they're not really equipped yet to offer feedback that isn't monogamous centric, because that's what that feedback is. "Well, you're struggling, maybe this isn't for you." But literally no one says that to monogamous people, right? You're insecure in your monogamous relationship, maybe monogamy is not for you. Never. They would never, right? They would ask a lot more questions about, how things are going and what is it, like they would go deeper into that feeling, examine that with you. You do the same thing for polyamory. It's the same work. It's just when there's more people, then we get activated more often sometimes. That can be the reality of non-monogamy is we have the same work to do. It's sometimes we just can't avoid it and it confronts us a little more often, but it is frustrating when someone is going to a professional who is presenting themselves as poly friendly, and then they still don't know what to say. It's why people like myself, are available for peer chats. I'd say a good portion of my clients are therapists who are wanting to know more and wanting to like they're doing a lot of different peer support to get reflection of like lived practice, because the experience of it is so vital to being able to explore and give feedback. So I'm really sorry that that happened to you. It's not true. If anything, like polyamory has been so healing for me. I can speak to that. For some people, it's so activating, or they're with the wrong person, or it's the wrong time, and they legit want out. And then their life gets better when they stop doing it, right? Like that is a thing. And that's fine. But for me, like, and for a lot of people, learning how to navigate group dynamics, learning how to tolerate discomfort and be supported by multiple people through that discomfort, to actually have safety where I never had relational safety before. So that all started from a place of terror, of alarm bells, of anxiety attacks and panic attacks, of like trying to control things and like worried that I'm not good enough. Like all of that was part of that I don't feel safe yet experience. And so experiencing that and then working with partners who are going to do that with me, right? Like not partners who are working against me. Partner choice matters a lot, but working with partners and friends on experiencing, "Oh, wait, I actually am safe. Oh, wait, enough time has gone by, I actually have not been abandoned. Maybe I'm not gonna be abandoned." Like, the experience of not having my worst fears come true, of having people validate and listen, because a lot of polyamorous people, knock on wood that you've encountered this kind of polyamorous person, will be more preoccupied with like intentionality around relationships. Like, if we want this to go well, we got to be doing this work, right? And so I've found a lot, like a higher percentage of people compared to when I was dating monogamously, a higher percentage of people are like eager to have deep emotional conversations and stuff and hold that space. And so obviously that it depends on the people involved, but it has been so incredibly healing. I have way fewer trauma responses than ever. I have seen such growth in like my ability to trust people. I used to just not, I was like, no, I can't rely on anybody to do anything. I don't like I didn't trust people with tasks, let alone with my emotional security. Right? So that is not where I'm at all anymore, and that I would want for you as well. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, whatever insecurity, I would want you to experience that insecurity being bullshit, and actually you have that strength, and actually you don't need to be different to be lovable, right? That you are valuable, period. And to experience people like validating that. And yeah, I think therapists really do a disservice when they don't understand how healing from trauma, this kind of community building can be. So, of course, that is if it is a community building intent. So I know there wasn't a question, but that's my opinion to answer your prompt. Okay, are there any more questions in the chat? Da-da. Nope. Okay. It's a quiet spring day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting me. This Patreon is the only reason that I can do all of these creative projects. So I'm just really grateful and I'm really humbled that this many people want to hear what I got to say. Like that's super cool. And it is interactive. If you are €3 and up, I want to know what you want to talk about. You can request video topics. You can request, that I answer certain prompts at the next live. So, yeah, I want this space to be what you need, to the best of my ability. I hope you have a beautiful day and a beautiful rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.